Wonderful, 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 wonderful. You there, Sher? Oh, you're there. Hello, can you hear me? No. Hmm.
Hear me? Can you hear me at all? What about now? It shows the microphone is working. I'm checking all my settings. On.
Oh. You're okay. You're okay.
You
It's
can hear
me.
me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's me. It's me that was cutting out there. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. Very good.
It took a little while to get connected. It took a little while to get
All
connected.
right. So,
So what did they say? What did they say?
oh, it's still under, okay, let me see. For CJ, it's still under investigation. It, the CEOs, one that provides the funding for the hospital, the one who runs the hospital, the director of operations, and a couple other people all got together and met this afternoon and watched a video. And apparently, yeah, CJ was right, because they're really all stressed and worried at this point. Apologizing profusely and saying nothing like this has ever happened before. I said, I don't really care right now about anything. I just want his wrist checked and examined, and I want to know when I can come pick him up. And I'm glad I didn't just go barreling up there this morning like I originally was going to. And that's because they could have turned me into CPS had I pulled him out without doctor's orders.
Yes.
Which is so stupid.
You got to be careful. You got to be careful. Yeah.
I know, but
Bureaucracy
it's
is not particularly logical. You got to follow the rules. Yeah. I know it's
well,
stupid. I know.
the thing is, put logic aside, somebody needs to be thinking about CJ. He's been completely re-traumatized thanks to them. In a place where he had asked originally to go to for help.
I would point out to him, this is a valuable experience. First of all, don't put yourself at the mercy of people who.
Lost you. Okay, I still see you.
Yeah. I just put off on the phone. It was working fine all day. And now it decides to not. So
It's hard to
who
say,
knows?
yeah.
Who knows?
Okay.
Just to let him know that this is what happens if you put yourself into the system, because you've got people in the system who are underpaid, underqualified, don't know what they're doing, don't have good character, and you're now putting yourself at the mercy of such people. Good lesson
Right.
to learn, right? And
Mm-hmm.
secondly, that the world does not work the way we think it does. We think people in that institution, they shouldn't do stuff like this, but they do. Right? The
Yeah.
whole hospital is freaking out because those two guys acted weirdly in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
maybe they do it all the time and they just get away with it or not. Maybe it's an anomaly. The universe trying to teach you a real powerful lesson that
Mhm.
if you go and do things and put yourself in a vulnerable situation like that, then stuff happens. Yes, you're the one who ends up suffering from it. But it's like when I first came to this country and people would cross the road. When we were kids, they were like super strict about crossing the road, right? I mean,
Still are.
it was look left, look right, look left again, right? This was hammered
Mhm.
into you, and it was like this big thing because it was said it's your responsibility. If you get run over, you're the one that ends up in the hospital. Doesn't matter if you got right of way or not. But when we
Right.
came here, people would cross at the pedestrian crossings, and they don't even look at the traffic. They just walk. Right? Sometimes I would drive up to them and like not brake at the appropriate time, like brake at the last minute, just to kind
Mhm.
of wake them up and scare them a bit. They don't even notice that. It's still amazing. So, it doesn't matter if you've got the right of way, you're still going to get run over and end up in the hospital or dead, right?
Yeah.
So, this is the key lesson. Doesn't matter whether you're right or people aren't supposed to. They do what they're not supposed to all the time. This is how the
Mhm.
world works. So, very profound lesson, right? Very deep lesson. Also, what I suspect happened from what you told me and what CJ said, him freaking out, their egos got pressed, their dominance, their control, and they just wanted to put him under control because he was exhibiting, I'm not in your control and I refuse to be in your control and I'm going to rail against your control. And of course, for superiority paradigm people, they can't handle this. Yeah. If you're going to
Yeah.
push back against their dominance, they're going to want to dominate you. And that's exactly to me what it sounded like. Those two guys simply wanted to dominate him. Yes.
Well, there was no reason to because he was already contained in the room.
I know, but it was his because he was raging inside the room when he
This is
stopped
what he's
pushing
supposed
him.
to do.
I know, but in their minds, it was personal. They're taking
Oh,
it
well,
personally.
you know what though? I've got no forgiveness for them, so I'm sorry I
Oh no,
don't.
I don't have either. I've just got understanding. My
Mhm.
point is, whether or not it's right what they do, you still need to be cognizant of it because it's like you're in the jungle,
Oh,
and
I
yeah,
am.
the
I
lion shouldn't
understand
eat
it.
you, but it's gonna eat you whether you now like it or not. Got to
Right.
understand. That's what I
Right.
mean. Yeah, I'm not condoning it or saying it's okay. I'm just simply explaining it as to how it comes about so that we can know what to do, not to trigger jackasses like that, foolish people like that, silly, hierarchical, BMN dominant people. They're horrible people, and we don't want to trigger them because this is the result. They will act unjustly and ridiculously and absurdly. Yes.
I really wish that they were not of the nationality that they are because it really is pressing hard on my personal um, biases, my own experiences. They're Nigerian.
Oh, well, that's a very hierarchical culture over there. And
Yeah.
also a culture where kids do not do they don't act out like this, they don't go like this, right? That's something that just absolutely will not be tolerated from kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know but
No, then they
again,
should.
see,
Then,
the lesson to me is, the bigger picture lesson the universe wants you to learn. And sometimes it uses extreme measures to learn. So, to me, this is an incredible lesson for CJ to say if you're going to do things that are really pressing the boundaries, you're going to get people that do the same egregious things that they shouldn't do either in return.
right.
One
Hey,
begets the other. Excess breeds excess.
hello. Hello. Oh, come on, answer. Hello. For freak's sakes. What is up with technology? Like
Can you call them back?
I'm trying to. I'm gonna see if it, go ahead. Wrong one.
Oh. But
Yeah.
that's really my point there, that excess breeds excess. When
Yeah.
you really
It does.
start pushing the edges of the system's going to push back at you. The whole world is going to push back at you if you're not in balance, if you're not in harmony, if you're not in attunement.
Right.
Very big deal. And
Right.
so, it's going to happen, whether it's logical or fair or not, doesn't matter. You are behaving unfairly to others in the first place with your rage, because you're putting negativity out on them, and they don't want that negativity out on them. You're infecting them with negativity, right? So they're going to push back. Just the nature of the game, right?
Yeah. Some of it though, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not condoning their behavior. I'm simply saying cause and effect. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I know. I
people will
understand.
behave irrationally when their buttons are pushed.
Hmm.
They can't handle it. Like in this case, children acting in ways that that just are not for children to behave. They can't handle it. Their brains cannot compute. It freaks them out. Really fascinating. Really, really fascinating. So I'm just, to me, dealing with people is like dealing with going out into the wilderness. It's the same, right? When you're out there in the wilds and you got wild animals, you're very cautious and very alert. And you don't screw around with wild animals. Well, if you do, you end up getting bitten and mauled and whatever.
Hmm.
I treat people in the same way, with the same degree of respect and caution.
Yeah.
I do not assume people are necessarily rational. Yes, you can cue people to be nicer than their typical crappy way of being. This I do whenever I go out, right? I cue them to behave in ways that are more, but you can
Hmm.
also cue them to behave in ways that are less.
Great.
So one has to be very cautious. You have to be
Yeah.
very deliberate. This is the power of deliberate living. Yes,
Yeah.
to be in charge of things, not let the world be in charge of you. Yes, and I don't
Right.
mean charge like dominance, bullying. Obviously, not that kind of in charge, but that
Right.
you're not at the mercy of the world. I
Right.
don't wish to be at the mercy of the world. Thank you very much. And that's the thing. CJ is through his behavior is very much putting himself at the mercy of the world. Yeah.
Well, he's trying not to. There is a there there is some definite deficits to the way his little brain was formed and
Yeah.
is operating. Um, some things that are just really unfortunate that he's going to have the rest of his life. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, he's basically become a one-trick pony. Yeah. When
no,
it's
what do
not
you mean by
worked.
that?
Well, I mean that he's got one method of trying to resolve his problems, which is
No,
rage.
no, because a lot of times that rage, he doesn't even know why he's doing it. It just does.
But that's what I'm saying. I mean, he's not aware, but to the underlyingness is you rage because there's a reason that you feel you need to do this. It's an attempt at resolving a problem. Yeah,
I don't know if it is or not. I know there is a brain malfunction.
yeah, yeah. I
They
mean,
know
I
it
see it
too.
as an attempt, and I really do feel I understand why. He's got what he believes to be an insoluble problem. I've seen this time and time again. When people believe, I don't mean the problem is insoluble, but when they believe it's
Hmm.
insoluble, it cannot be solved. So they doomed whichever way, and this leads to this kind of rage or depression. Yes, when you believe it's an insoluble problem. Right? You're being
Mm,
affected, you're being hurt, but you can't talk about it, you can't solve it because that adds or makes it even worse. And
mm.
this is a major, major dilemma. This belief that the problem is insoluble.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
mean, I can understand what you're saying to a degree. I mean, I can accept it. I just don't think that that's all of the problem. I do have to go on the, also look at the evidence that they've got, that there are definitely physical
oh yeah.
things wrong with the brain.
Oh, I
They,
agree. I agree. Now, I mean, it's all part of the same deal, right? So you start off with something that distorts the system, right? And
drugs.
that distortion leads to distorted emphasis, right? Now the brain starts looping on an emphasis loop, and this rewires the brain. And especially if you've got a distortion that's emphasizing something that's insoluble that you don't want, what is the only thing that you can do in such a situation? It's rage,
Well, if that's the case, then why haven't they been able to help sociopaths?
because they don't understand this. for the most part. They really don't. They don't understand how the brain gets rewired into a looping thing. So they understand the behavior, but they don't understand the emphasis part of how it changes the brain.
Mm.
They don't know how to get somebody to change their habits in re-emphasis, etc., etc. It's difficult because if somebody's in a loop where they don't want to listen, then this is a problem. This is a
Yeah.
problem. You
Yeah.
have you don't have an opportunity to break through that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So to me, the situation is you need to get a situation where you get his ear, and this may take some pressure and some leverage, which is why I was hoping they would leave him in that room until such time as he calms down and he's willing to listen to reason. Yeah. Okay, you're willing to listen and talk, fine. Otherwise, you go back in the room and you can rage in there all you like. It doesn't gonna help you anything, right? But here's
Yeah.
the problem, though. See, when somebody believes they can't talk about it, somebody has to come and essentially start talking about what they don't want to talk about in a
Mm.
way that lets them understand. Oh, this can be spoken about. This can be addressed.
Yeah.
So that's why I was saying I hope that he ends up in support groups where people are saying their deepest, horrible, deep, top secrets. And they're saying it like, because they've already shared it, right? And it's like this part of the deal. Well, that's what we do here. We talk about the stuff. And that by like, oh my God, really? Did you just say that? Holy fuck. And you're like, and then it's like, yeah, they did, they don't say that, but the conversation in your head, holy shit, these people are talking about stuff that I never thought anybody would ever talk about. But well, I guess if they can, and then you start realizing the other possibilities, the world doesn't work the way you think.
Right. Right.
So, it's just slow and cumbersome to work with, which is why, when CJ comes on and interacts with the gaming stuff, I just keep it with the gaming. At least I'm developing some type of interaction. Okay, it's gone again, but at least there's
Yeah.
something there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Little by little, little by little.
Hmm. Yeah. So
Acclimatizing. That's the issue. Yes,
what is it?
acclimatizing.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
well, like when you're making friends with a wild animal, it takes a long time sometimes, right? You have to develop that trust. You have to be very cautious. Sometimes you get unlucky. You just putting out your hand, and at that moment, there's this loud crash somewhere, and now you've got this negative association. Oh, fuck up. Nothing you could
Hmm.
do. You couldn't help it, but it happens. So now you got to start all over again. But now the animal is even more skittish, and so you get situations where it's just they don't want to know. Just forget
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
So it's but humans aren't animals, so there
Hmm.
is a different thing to it. They have more tools to overcome such stuff because they aren't ruled entirely by instinct and emotion. And that's
Right.
the thing with CJ. It may just be, right now, whatever is emphasized because the hormones are running through and everything is felt more intensely, right? When we're
Hmm.
teenagers, we feel everything super intensely. So this, of
Hmm.
course, aggravates the emphasis. And when something happens and the emphasis is a negative emphasis, the brain is being trained in a negative way. It grows in a negative way. So the emphasis has to either be directed positively, which doesn't seem to happen much right now. Yes. I mean, it's not. Where are the corresponding positive experiences to the negative?
I don't know.
They aren't.
He's
They not don't seem to be. I mean, at least with the playing football, he had some, you know, friendship stuff. So there
that's
are
not
some, but not to the same degree of intensity, and this is the problem. I think so. The intensity is reinforcing the negative stuff and training the brain around that rather than the positive.
well,
Some
it's
sort
not
of
for
thing.
lack of want.
No, I agree. It's not for lack of one. But so
Hmm.
I'm just saying though, as the he grows, matures a bit more, and the intensity of these feelings aren't so intense, this negative looping reinforcement will be less and less. So then
Yeah.
then the ear opens up a bit more. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Well, hopefully, as soon as I get him back, then if I can help it, he's not going to go to any of these inpatient places. Um,
the
I
downside of that is that if he knows you bent on him not going there, it gives him real power.
He doesn't know.
What's that?
I said he doesn't know.
Oh, good. Yeah, make sure it stays that way. Because if he feels there's no consequence, then of course he knows I can do whatever. And he's already said that before he believed that, you weren't going to do anything.
Yeah, yeah. But
Lots
see,
of,
here's the thing though. So he's expecting physical punishment.
yeah,
I don't believe in physical punishment.
yeah. No, it's pointless.
Yeah. So what he doesn't understand though, to him that's punishment.
Yeah. What's
Okay.
worse than physical punishment for him?
Okay,
What's worse is say, look, your punishment is to talk to me. Yes. Yes.
All right, I'm back.
All righty then. All right. What they say? What they say?
Oh no, that was just CJ.
Oh, CJ, all right?
Um, he's very disappointed, of course, because he was hoping to get home today. Um,
Oh, oh, well,
and
good.
they didn't
Good
tell him
signs. Huh?
anything. Well, no, they just don't tell him anything. They're just they don't communicate, period.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're not
Communication is so
communicating with
key.
me.
Yeah.
So apparently they did a X-ray, but I don't know the results of that.
Interesting.
So
But he's okay otherwise?
no, no, he just needs out of there because he's feeling really pretty scared. Um, so
I'm glad you got to talk to him at least.
yeah,
And
yeah,
cement that relationship that you are his lifeline. You are his support. Yes.
yeah. Well, hopefully he understands that. That's something that I have been trying to impart to him for some time. That um, tag, I'm it. So
There you go. There you go. There you go.
yeah,
But emphasizing always good, right? Never wasted.
mhm, yeah.
Good.
Okay, so now I got to go back over to Facebook because I don't remember. You said you had it specific. You named it. It had to do with habit and what
Yes, yes. Habit and associations,
habit
and
and
particularly,
association.
yeah, a habit and mood management to associate it that use this, because this is what you were saying that for you you wanted to deal with a little bit better, right?
Yes.
To not get put out by your moods, and this is appropriate right now, to understand that we feel in a certain way, and yes, that feeling has a justification to it. However, the feeling itself is not the justification for our behavior. Sensibility and sobriety needs to be,
Right.
right? So it's that
Right.
ability to separate out. I feel really annoyed by this, but yet that's going to be counterproductive, because when you get annoyed with bureaucrats, no matter how right you are, they shut down. This this doesn't work
Right.
strategically. So
Well,
you've got to
see,
set aside that annoyance and go by the rules and the rigmarole of it, and diplomacy and all sorts of other crap to get there. I'm just saying though. So just because our feelings are legitimate doesn't make them strategic.
doesn't make them what?
Strategic,
Well, no, I
right?
don't see how feelings can be strategic.
Well, I mean, it can be sometimes. I mean, if I'm with, let's say, a couple of dogs, and the dogs are trying to be alpha, and I get really annoyed with them and act all tough and get aggressive. Well, in that case, the feeling is a strategic choice, because then now see me as alpha, and they all pay attention and they leave me alone and don't bother, right? See what I mean?
Okay.
So in that sense, I'm using the feeling itself isn't strategic, but the use of the feeling can be. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So, but when we're feeling something and we feel that this feeling is legitimate, right? That feeling can, because we feel it's a legitimate feeling, we can then assume that it's appropriate in a circumstance from a strategic point of view, and that's where we get into trouble, when we don't make that connection and think, is this mood, this feeling, strategically appropriate? Not, is it right for me to feel it? That's two different things. Yes, it's right for me
Okay.
to feel it, but not in the situation, right? Not if I want to get something. Like I said, with bureaucracy, you legitimately can feel, or should feel, that they've done something wrong, and this, but to force them to swallow this just they don't want to acknowledge, because if they acknowledge that they were at fault, they lose their jobs in the end of the world and God knows what all. I won't do that.
Yes.
So it becomes counterproductive to try and force the attitude, the mood, because they will just see it as counterproductive, resist against it. So yeah, it's a problem. But what I want to say is, okay, so now when we look at this bigger problem that we have
Okay.
habits of feeling. Yes,
Habit of what?
habits of feeling. Oh, hold on, hold on,
Okay.
hold on. Let me.
That's
I must
strange.
turn my mic up. I forgot to turn my mic up.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
the mic
And
the mic on the camera, it defaults when I switch to it. It defaults to a low setting
right there you
sensitivity.
go.
Now you can
Okay.
hear me good, right?
Yes, I can. Now
All
I
right.
can.
So the issue is, habits of feeling. Yes.
Okay.
In other words, something happens, I just feel I feel in a certain way out of sheer habit. Yeah, it's just automatic. Automatic. Yes. If I see somebody beating a dog, I just a habit already by now that I get outraged. Yes.
Yeah.
But so the problem is obviously when I see the beating, it's almost always appropriate. Yes. Or
Right.
I say almost always.
Right. I heard
You're
that.
walking down the street in a tough neighborhood, and you're walking through the gang territory, and the gang leader's busy beating the dog. You show your outrage, he might just feel disrespected and set his gang members onto you. Yeah.
Okay.
So not appropriate to feel it in that situation, correct?
Okay. Yes and no.
Well, if you want to get beaten up, fine. Show your outrage at the humanity,
No, but
inhumanity.
you don't always necessarily need to show what you feel. That's why I said yes and
Ah,
no.
right, right. Okay. So now we get to a separate point, right? So the feeling of it is one thing, the showing of it is another. It's very
Yes.
hard to feel things and not show it. That's a
Right.
separate skill. Yes. So
Right.
yes, I'm taking for granted here somewhat that feeling it shows, because even if you don't make an effort to show it, you can still see somebody's feeling stuff even if they're trying not to show it, because they're not always successful in not showing it. So yes, the issue is really to not show it. You can feel it but not show it, but that's very difficult to do, right? It's much
Okay.
easier to simply be able to not feel on demand and feel as you choose. So
Mm,
I can see it, I can appreciate it, I can understand it, I can know it's crap and horrible, but I don't necessarily have to feel that horror.
I'm trying to get this down.
No problem, no problem. Yes,
Um,
it's tricky. It's very tricky.
okay, but all right. So I hear there's two things that kind of maybe they tie together. There's two questions. Maybe they're questions, statements, thoughts. I'll just say I have two thoughts. First one is so I understand what you're saying about, we don't always want to show, of course, what we're feeling. Um, and I pretty well have a good idea of when those times are that we do and don't. However, sometimes when we do show it, it's inappropriate. Other times it's not inappropriate.
Exactly,
It's necessary.
exactly.
But some of these feelings, too, though, at least I know from me in my experience, they can lead into defense mechanisms being activated. My biggest one is, like I mentioned yesterday, withdrawal, pullback, complete
Yeah,
retreat of, kind of, it's not, maybe some would call it denial, but it's not denial because I'm very aware everything is going on. But at the same time, I'm getting to that point of just being sore, being tired, don't want to deal with any more of this bullshit, want to completely cut out of the whole mental health
right,
system and
right.
pull CJ back and just say, you know what, everybody just go the hell away and leave us alone. We'll deal. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's not good either.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. In other words, feelings easily override sensibility.
Yeah, they do.
Right?
They
And
do.
that's my
And it
point.
turns into a defense
So we
mechanism.
want to we want to be in a situation where we choose our feelings, not our feelings choose for us.
Right.
Yes?
Yes.
And
And
this is very
okay.
key because, as we're just determining now, the showing and the feeling of feelings, both, whether you show them or not, either way, both of those need to be a strategic consideration. Because I can feel and not show and still get into trouble because that feeling could cause me
Yes.
to act inappropriately, right? So this is the
Yeah.
key that we're looking to do, is to develop some other mechanism to act by. So let's
Right.
take it, if you were a doctor, yes, and you come in and there's the naked person. You can't go around getting sexually aroused,
Right.
right? So you have to have a different mechanism. and they train doctors, scientists to develop this professional attitude that distances you, right? And you don't look at things through that lens. You have that attachment that puts you into professional mode, and you basically don't end up feeling in that mode, right? Now, this
Right.
can also cause problems with scientists. Very famous study that they did. Trying to remember what it's called now. The very famous study where they had these students be prison guards and prisoners, and
Mm-hmm.
they basically let the study run, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the name of the study, those that were the prison guard, they became really horrible and started abusing the people, and the prisoners went along with it.
Oh,
Incredible, incredible. But because they had gotten into sort of scientist mode and they disconnected from their feelings, and they were able to do really horrid stuff because, well,
oh,
it's the name of science. Yeah? So this is a big problem. We really have to be discerning and have that sobriety, discern things on their on their actual merit, on their capital U understanding merit. Yes.
okay.
And
Okay.
now we've got a different criteria for decision making. Huh? See what I mean?
Uh, on feelings?
No, we're going to go beyond feelings. We're going to look
Okay.
at things as they are appropriate in the bigger context. Yeah. So in that case, now, yes, in the smaller context, the abuse for the prisoners, it was an experiment that put you in charge. They didn't say be abusive. This just where did this come from, right? But they thought it was appropriate to be abusive.
Mm,
So they were stuck in a little context bubble of appropriateness. They didn't look at the bigger. But you're being horrid to people. You're being mean.
right.
Just because this is what gods do, supposedly in their minds, is what an idiotic idea. But they got caught up in the bubble. So that's what we want to do. That's why we look for awareness, discernment, and understanding. Yes.
Yes.
So that we don't fall into those bubbles. And that's the problem with emotion and feeling. They can pull us into those bubbles quite dramatically. So yes,
Well, yeah, I'm aware of that.
and with lots of
But,
consequences.
there, I also feel at the same time that I have a right to protect myself from the bullshit that's going on around there.
Oh, but none of what I said mitigates against your right to protect yourself. Actually, it is to enhance this right. Just because you've got a right doesn't mean you're necessarily going to do it strategically. I'm trying to say exercise that right strategically. Don't be inefficient in exercising your right. I see this all the time. People are completely in the right and they exercise that right, and what happens to them? Take the people who have the right to disagree with the police. Yeah,
Mhm.
they get shot, they get killed, they get beaten up. Doesn't work for them. Just because you have a right, it doesn't mean that you're going to and exercising that right. This has got nothing to do with whether or not you're being strategic in exercising that right, and that you're going to be successful in exercising that right. See what I mean?
Yeah.
Very big difference. Very big difference. So you can be as right as you like. Like I've got the right to walk across the street. Yes, this is a pedestrian crossing. I've got every right in the world. I still get run over if somebody just ignores my right. It's not very strategic. Yeah?
Well, where would the strategy be in that then? See, that's right. You're losing me because
Well,
it's like
there
to me,
isn't
it's common
strategy. That's my
sense.
point. There isn't
Well,
strategy. They are simply insisting on their right. They're not being strategic.
okay, then how would what I said was is how would you be strategic? I mean, you're going to cross a street.
Pay
What's the
attention to
strategy
the
there? Works
cars.
both ways. What's that?
Pay attention to the cars. And if you see a car's not going to stop, you run to get out of the way. You jump out of the way. Or you wait until the cars have passed and there's no chance of a car hitting you whatsoever. Right?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's common
Right. I
sense.
mean, you get your objective is to cross the street. Your objective is not to stop the car.
Right.
Right? So it's this clarity of intent. Know what it is that you want. Huh? Not you have the right of way, yes, but that's not the objective to insist on your right of way. Your
Hmm.
objective is to cross the street. The right of way is just an assistance, it's a bonus. But if you try and insist on it and people don't respect your rights, well, then you're screwed. And
Right.
that's what happens when people insist on their rights and others don't respect them. Then there's a mess. Then strategy goes out the window. There is no strategy involved. You're just insisting on your right, and you're expecting people to comply with that and to respect that. But of course, they don't necessarily, right? Most drivers do respect the pedestrian crossing, right? Most, but not all, unfortunately.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is just the thing in general, right? This failure to respect rights. So, what I'm trying to say is that to insist on rights as a way of living, it doesn't get you all that far. Yes, you can when it's useful and it gets you what you need. But more important is to be strategic in getting what you want. Whether it's a right, you have a right to do so or not. Yes.
Okay.
Well, I want to get across the road and I want to jaywalk. I don't have a right to jaywalk necessarily, but if I do so strategically, I cross the road safely. I achieve my objective. And if I do it
Right.
when the local, law enforcement isn't watching, I don't get a jaywalking ticket.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you have to just be strategic. Is my point. It overrides everything. Clarity of intent combined with strategy. So emotionality is not particularly strategic, is what I'm trying to say. Yes, sometimes the emotion can truly help tremendously to get things done, but only when done appropriately, not always. It's always about this appropriateness, which is, strategy is about appropriateness, yes?
Right.
Appropriateness for a specific reason. It's leverage. Strategy is leverage. It's very powerful to understand this. But what I really want to get to is to use habits and associate this with what it is that we want to change. Yes.
What
So
it is, what it is, what?
what it is that we want to change.
Through habit,
Well,
changing habits.
we're going to use habits to change certain things, right? So let's say, for
Yeah.
instance, well, not say for instance, but in this case, what are we looking to change? We're looking to change default emotionality. Yes.
Okay. So you're calling default emotionality what I know is a defense mechanism?
Correct. Well, that's one default emotionality. There may be others. We could just, okay. You get some people, they meet a famous person and they get all tongue tied. It's a different kind of a default emotionality, right? They get
Okay.
overwhelmed by the famous person and like, and they get all silly and they don't know what to say, right?
Okay.
It's still an emotionality. They're getting overwhelmed. It's too much for them. They start to feel less, and all sorts of stuff goes on inside them.
Okay.
Or you could have a default emotionality. Well, fears, phobias. There's tons of them, right?
Right.
Some people they go to the dentist and oh my god, they just freak out. Whatever. Planes. It's a good
Right.
example of default emotionality, fear of flying, right? I mean, it's safer than everything else that you pretty much do on a regular basis, but no, you can't fly now, or go swim in the ocean because you're afraid of sharks. So stuff like this, right?
Okay.
Um, Now, those aren't necessarily defaults for everybody. They're your defaults for whatever reason, but they cause a lot of problems. Is my point. So we want to see if we can be in a situation where we can not respond with default emotionality. And the key to this is to use habits as the mechanism that we can use to retrain these emotional associations, right? Because they're associations. Something happens, you get triggered. Let's just call it triggering, but where triggering is associations, right? Triggering
Yeah.
is usually synonymous with an intense association or an intense emotion being brought to the front. But I don't necessarily mean it that it's intense. It can be even trivial emotions, right? Like
Yeah.
for instance, I see somebody on TV doing something and it just irritates me. I
Hmm.
can live with it, but still, if it just happens automatically, that's a default. It's a habit, yes. But we
Right.
want to use our other habits, like for instance, the habit of when you stir your coffee, which way do you stir your coffee and with which hand?
Left and left.
What's that?
Left and right. I mean, left hand, stir it,
Right,
counter,
right.
stir
And
it
you stir
clockwise.
clockwise or anti-clockwise?
Clockwise.
Right. Okay. So that's what I'm saying about a habit and a routine. We're going to use habits and routines. So I want to delineate first and say what it is that we're doing to describe the bigger picture. we're going to use those habits and routines as a mechanism, as an associative mechanism, because those habits and routines are something that we can easily become conscious of through an act of determination, an act of deliberation.
Right.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to be paying attention to those habits and routines and do them differently. Right? So from now
Mm-hmm.
on, stir your coffee differently. Stir it with the other hand, stir it backwards, stir it crossways, turn your spoon around. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not about how you stir the coffee. I really struggle with people to understand this. It has nothing to do
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
It's totally irrelevant. In that moment that you do this differently, that's a moment where you are popping a bubble to say, oh, 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 what am I doing? What am I doing? Ah, I am learning to reassociate. So
Yeah.
in that moment, you can say, oh, what am I doing? How am I feeling in this exact moment right now? Right?
Yeah.
And now I said, I want to change that feeling. I want to choose deliberately to feel differently. Yes.
Yeah.
So we are going to use this habits and routines as a triggering mechanism to get us to reassociate our habits with things. Now, it may not be a particular feeling with stirring your coffee, but
Uh-huh.
typically when you're about to have coffee, you may be in a mood that wants changing. That's why you're having coffee. And so right before you take that first sip, you can say, oh, what about now? You're aware of your mood, your feeling, and you're
Right.
aware that you want to learn to deliberately change it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now you can use this habit to not only be associated with being deliberately consciously aware, but also to use that deliberate conscious awareness to change your moods and feelings, to reassociate them. Yes? So
Okay.
as you go through the day and you're doing everything, after a while, you start paying attention to everything you do. It starts with
Yep.
the habits and routines because those are easy to notice, right?
Right.
Which way you put your socks on, which way you put your legs on, your pants, right? I mean,
Uh-huh.
I, for instance, do not put my pants on one leg at a time like everybody else.
Well, some people don't.
Right, right. I
Some
mean, I
people,
love that expression. Oh, you put your pants on like one leg at a time like everybody else. Sorry, no, I don't. What do you mean? Yeah. Well, if you've ever had a broken leg or a sore leg, and you had to sit on the chair or the bed and put your leg on, pulling it up like that because you can't stand on one leg, well, then you'll know how to put on a leg two legs at a time, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
very easy to do. It's very easy to do. Anyway,
yeah,
I have fun with that though because people are so convinced of what they say is true. They never think it
yeah,
through. Don't get stuck
yeah.
in stuff. So this is the point of using habits and routines. How
Uh-huh.
you cook, how you brush your hair, how you talk to people, how you greet them, every single thing. You start looking at this as a habit and a routine. You say, oh my God, I never realized I did things. And like, there's no good. Sometimes you're going to become a bit horrified to say, wow, I was doing that. It's kind of stupid the way I was doing it, but I never thought about it, right? So
Right,
this is really cool. This is very, very cool to re-examine these things, but with the intent not of changing them. Yes, some things will change, but with the intent of associating it with deliberate awareness, with
right,
choice. Yes. And
right,
now, once I'm in that space of choice, I say, wow, how am I feeling? Oh, why am I continuing to choose to feel this way? Doesn't matter why I'm feeling it. It matters that I choose to continue or not. I'm
uh,
feeling trapped. Why am I continuing to choose this way? No good reason whatsoever. Okay, change. Right? And you practice this habit of changing your feelings on demand. Plus, you're also developing the habit of looking at things from an overview perspective, not always being immersed in the bubble. Because when you're stirring your coffee without thinking, you're immersed in a bubble, correct?
right,
So now you're practicing zooming out from the bubble. You're practicing that overview discernment, that detachment. And this is very, very, very cool. Yes?
hmm.
Very
One of
cool.
the there's on that association, which you were just talking about there.
Yeah.
Um, one of the ways that I changed that exercise up just a little bit, because I've done that one pretty frequently, is I talk to myself out loud about what I'm
There
doing.
you go. There
I
you
just
go.
talk about it because then I'm really paying attention to it. Otherwise, I get too easily distracted.
Yeah.
If I think, okay, well, if it's all thought, if I'm stirring different and this, no, I actually have to say stuff out
Wonderful.
loud.
Yes. Yes. It's very
Um,
helpful. Very helpful to
and
start
and then
hearing
that
yourself.
way, it really helps change that. But the one thing that Like I said yesterday, the one thing that I did notice, and it's something, oh, it's okay now and then. To me, it's
Yeah,
okay now and then to withdraw, to pull back, take a look at the whole bigger picture and just reassess,
yeah,
you know? But when I know that it's done um, out of fear, out of I want to cut and run, then I mean, and I recognized it right away. I'm like, yep, that's an old familiar feeling. Um, take the kids and run.
yeah, yeah,
Always used to happen. That's an old survival mechanism. It really, really is.
yeah,
It's a defense.
yeah,
Um, so that's why I'm looking here. Well, how do I apply that?
yeah,
How do I apply what we're doing here to not not just cutting everything off? Because right now my trust is at zero.
yeah.
I can count on one hand people that I trust.
Right. So your trust is based on how you feel.
It is, unfortunately.
So that's what I'm saying. So what we are looking to practice is to feel deliberately on demand. No matter how justified the feeling is, learn to change it simply because you want to.
Let me see. Feel on demand.
This is an incredibly, ridiculously powerful, powerful exercise. Unbelievably so. Unbelievably so.
Uh, okay, describe feeling on demand. Just being able to.
Yes. Yeah. Simply because you want to, for no good reason other than you are simply being stubborn to say, I'm feeling this way. I've got every right to feel this way, but I'm going to change it. So simply because I want to be able to change how I feel when I want to feel, not because the world is saying I must feel this way. Yeah. So use that stubbornness to say, no, even though I should feel this way, I must feel this way, I'm supposed to feel this way, I've got every right, I need to feel this way, I'm going to change it anyway, simply for the skill of being able to. In this case, I'm going to switch to maybe feeling something that's less appropriate, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to do it to develop the ability so that when it is appropriate, I can choose, that I'm not locked into feeling only one particular way. Yes? It's
Hmm,
to develop this freedom to feel whichever way you want to feel, not whichever way the situation says you must feel this way.
right.
Make sense?
Well, yeah. I mean, trust though is not. Trust isn't a feeling. I don't know what trust is. I just know it's not a feeling.
No, no,
But
no, no. But I mean, trust comes from feelings.
okay.
In other words, we feel secure. That leads to trust. So yeah. So
Yeah, there's
trust
not a
is a
whole lot that feels
sobriety.
secure right now.
What's that?
And there's not a whole lot of that inner safety and security going on right now. That's
Exactly.
why I pull back,
Exactly. Exactly.
you know? Yeah.
Exactly. So, so when we understand that we're looking to change our feelings, why? So that we can learn to get into a space of sobriety. Because when we are being pressed by feelings, our sobriety is compromised. Yeah.
Yeah. When you were talking about sobriety, though, is that what you're talking about? Inner safety?
No, no. Sobriety is a super sensibility.
Okay.
So we want to learn to be sober, even if we aren't safe. We want that super sensibility in all situations, not only when we're feeling safe. If we can only make sensible decisions when we're feeling safe, that's strategically very limiting, no?
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean,
Well, think of it this way. I mean, if
because if
you're on
you're
the battlefield, you're not safe. You need to learn to make sensible decisions on the battlefield. See,
right,
that's what I'm saying.
well, but see, that's your what I'm talking about is inner safety. That feeling of,
Ah,
see, for me, inner
okay,
safety is mistrust.
right,
Um,
right. Now that feeling of inner safety, it's not trust for the outside world, but trust for yourself.
well,
Yeah. I mean,
I don't
I'm safe and secure because I have self trust in myself, regardless of what the situation around me is going on. Yeah.
huh. Guess I didn't look at it that way.
What's that?
I said, I guess I wasn't looking at it that way.
Yeah. I mean, if
Yeah,
you
I
think
know
of it
that
that way, it
externally,
changes things a bit. Yes.
well, yeah, because externally, do I trust? No. I don't
No.
trust anybody in the
Right.
mental health
Exactly.
system right now.
Exactly. Exactly. But if you trust yourself, you start to feel a lot safer, don't you?
Yeah.
And now, because you trust your own intrinsic sensibility, you trust your sobriety, you trust your ability to be sensible, you trust your ability to perspective shift, think things through to the end, be impeccable, be in alignment with your conscience. You trust yourself also to not make decisions because of emotionality.
Oh yeah. No,
That's the skill we're working on right now. That's the skill that you do not as yet fully trust.
what, making decisions because of my emotions. Well, that's why I
Well,
didn't
to
do
make
anything
them
yesterday.
without your emotions being involved. Right? This is not so cut and dried, right? That's a skill. Okay, I might have that, but it might be need a bit more work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
That's
huge.
true.
That's really huge, right? To be able to change our moods on demand because we want to, because we want to, so that we can shift out of a mood that we know is not helping my decision making. To say, let me set this mood aside. I'll come back to it later as needed. But right now, I'm going to put myself in a mood that does help my decision making.
Yeah.
And it's really learning to do what we don't want to do. We typically don't want to set aside those emotions that we feel because we feel we should be feeling them. And that puts a big pressure on us, and we don't want to give that up.
I don't know if I feel as should right now on this one. I do feel very angry and defensive because
Yeah,
I don't understand the need for grown men to hurt children. Never have, never will. I don't give a shit what their excuse is. They
right,
don't have
right.
any business
So,
doing that.
so in order to be at peace with this, right, you have to find who says you have to make sense of it to be at peace with it. Who said that in order to be at peace with it, you have to understand why grown men have a need to hurt children?
Yeah, I just
I mean, to
well,
understand it is to say they were being stupid. End of story. They were being irrational. They were being foolish. They were being absurd, being ridiculous.
they were
That's the
being criminal.
understanding. See what I mean? It's not looking,
They
understanding doesn't mean finding a good reason. Understanding is simply being aware of the reason.
the
And when
reason
the
they were
reason
being
is,
criminal.
what's exactly being criminal, being preposterous, being absurd. Yes.
Oh no, I don't want to give him any nice words. Mm-mm.
Well, preposterous, absurd, criminal, not necessarily nice words.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just looking at them as criminals at this point, along with all the others who were
Right,
trying to cover it
right.
up.
But here's the point, right? So when a lion wants to eat you, this is criminal in human terms. Yes.
What, a lion eating a person?
Well, yeah. If it was a human wanting to eat you, this would be criminal. Correct.
Yeah.
All right. But for a lion, it's not.
No, because it's an animal and we know different.
Now, who said those two people are humans? Not
I,
me.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm
Right. Well,
assuming they
for
are.
me, human is not a default condition that you automatically human. No, you need to learn to become human. It's an accomplishment. It's something that you achieve. It's not just a default because sadly, we don't necessarily start off even remotely close to human like those two guys. They never learn
Hmm.
to be human. And I refuse to treat them as such until they display human behavior.
Yeah.
So now, right there, you've shifted your whole perspective on them. Now, you're not looking to excuse their behavior by saying, well, there's a reason why they do this. Well, there is a reason, but it's a stupid reason, but by implication, a good reason. Just understanding doesn't mean we're looking for a good reason, a sensible reason, and understanding doesn't mean we're excusing the behavior. We're just understanding it. Well, they're lions or jackals or assholes, whatever. Right? They're criminals. Well, that's what criminals do. They behave preposterously. I understand it. Okay. Well, that's it. End of story. Very simple to understand. The
Yeah.
inhumans behaving inhumanly. It's what inhumans do. Yeah. Right?
Right.
Does that help?
I get, yes, it does. But I'm just trying to figure out why it's important that I have to change my feelings about this situation.
You don't have to change your feelings.
because I've not made any decisions. I've not really discussed this with anybody other than the
Right.
CEO
But
when they
but
asked me questions.
but here's the thing: you don't have to change your feelings. I'm not saying your feelings are wrong. I'm simply saying don't let them get in the way of your strategic thinking. But nothing to
No,
do with whether your feelings are right or wrong. It's just totally irrelevant.
right.
Regardless, either way, right or wrong, those feelings impact your decision making. And if they distort your decision making, whether they were right or wrong, your feelings, you still end up with distorted decision making, and you end up losing out because of it. See?
Yeah.
So I see this all the time. People end up making poor decisions because of the way they felt. And they justify their poor decision making. Yeah, but what I felt was right. Yeah, but you still lost out because of your bad decision making.
Uh-huh.
You're the one who's getting screwed, whether you were right or not in your feelings. So it's not about changing how you feel. It's about being able to set that feeling aside temporarily if you need to set it aside so that you can make a more objective decision that you're not influenced by the emotion. Right? So it's not
Right.
about changing it. It's just about being able
So
to
the
set it
decision
aside.
you're talking about, though, if just to use this to stay on track, um, is where I'm saying that my defense mechanism of withdrawal,
Yeah.
that's a choice, that's a decision.
Well, exactly. That's a consequence in your case because they're so directly associated and linked, right? So when the egregious happens, this is egregious, right?
Hmm.
Your association is withdrawal, which leads to very poor decision making. The emotionality is affecting your decision making.
Um, Actually, when I withdraw, I don't make any decisions. I just quit. I quit the world.
Exactly, and that is very poor decision making.
It could be, yeah, I
I
can
mean, to
see
not
that.
make a decision is a very poor decision.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right. So it leads to ineffectiveness. It leads to compromise. It leads to problem. Yes.
okay,
Yeah. I mean, when I'm saying poor decision making, obviously to withdraw and not make any decisions, this is as in the category of decision making, that's probably the worst,
probably.
right? Yeah. So my point is that you are still the emotionality, as legitimate as that is affecting your ability to function, to make decisions, because it just makes you want to not make decisions, right?
Yeah,
So it's affecting you. That's my point. It's affecting your rationality, and you know it.
okay,
You know it makes you a bit on the irrational side, right? Because I just withdraw and shut down and don't want to do anything
yeah,
because the feeling overwhelmed. Right? And this is what happens with depression, of course, right? The feeling overwhelms, and then you lose all sense of proportion and discernment and everything, right? And then the whole thing
mhm,
snowballs, and it's one great big screw up, right?
okay.
Yeah. So the key is to learn to mood manage. Yes.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
mood or energy, both.
Right. But the two work together because moods are a great consumer of energy. So if we
Yeah,
want to manage our energy, we have to manage our moods, right? Because if
yeah,
you have moods running rampant, it's just going to use up all your processing power, right? It's no good having a very efficient processor in your computer and you just open every program on your computer, right? You're still going to
right,
overwhelm the computer. Yeah. So if
right.
you think of moods as programs like that, and that's my point, we tend to get caught up in feeling moods and the moods justify themselves, right? So the more I
Mhm.
feel it and the more I believe this feeling is right to feel, it reentrenches that belief and we get into a feeling belief loop. Yes, and it loops, loop. So we need to jump outside of that. And this is what I'm trying to say is just if we can decide to simply say, I'm not going to feel this. Why? Because I want to be able to do so through choice, not out of have to. Yeah.
Okay.
You feeling the way you're feeling because you don't really have a choice,
Well, I think I don't have a choice.
precisely, but you do. And choice has nothing to do with right or wrong. Choosing not to feel this way doesn't mean that you negate the validity of the feeling. Not at all. We're doing a
Right.
sophisticated maneuver here, right? We are
Yeah.
saying the feeling is valid. I just choose to want to feel it on my terms and not have it forced on me by circumstance. Yes? I
Right.
want to be in charge of feeling my legitimate feelings,
Yeah.
which
Right.
means also that if I do get caught up in an illegitimate feeling, I've got that safety that once I stop feeling it and I set it aside and I can look at it a bit more objectively, then I will see it as a not such a valid feeling. Yes, because that happens. We get caught up in idiot feelings sometimes. Yes, maybe a long time that it's happened to you, but sometimes I know I've been caught up in idiotic feelings,
Okay.
and I thought they were very valid. But when I afterwards, I'm like, oh man, sorry about that. No, get caught up in the moment. Or
Yeah. You know what? Why do phones do this?
I don't
That's
know.
terrible.
They do
Yeah,
it to
it's better
irritate
now.
you.
Huh?
They do it to irritate you.
Yeah, to irritate me. I swear that's what electronics are. They're annoyance buttons for everybody.
Some troll working his magic there.
Yeah, they're just annoyance buttons. That's what they are. So,
Right.
electronics are the
So,
bane of
so
our
this is
existence.
this is a good example, right? Our
But
feelings affect our perception of reality.
well, of course, yeah, they
Right.
do.
So when we can choose our feelings, we end up choosing our reality. Yes,
Oh boy, I could
or
really
at
argue
least
that
having
one.
some measure of influence and control on it.
I can see some measure of control, but I can't see it changing our reality because honestly, if I were to believe that all of my feelings could fix my entire reality, then oh boy, I would be dancing, enjoying
Well, there
top
was a
bills and
step in
everything else,
between. There was a
and be
step.
a billionaire.
Yeah, right. But it's there was a step there. I said,
Yeah,
yes, it affects our reality because it affects our perception of reality. So when we say reality here, yes, it has a, it's not altogether so, but it certainly affects my perception of reality, which has
yeah,
the effect of changing it. So when I wake up in a good mood, the world is a wonderful place. That's my reality. The world is a wonderful place. It doesn't mean that I can, get the Ferrari that I want, but still, I'm living in a wonderful world. Whereas when I wake up in a bad mood, the world is full of crap and shitty and terrible, and I'm in a horrible place. Right? See what I mean by a different
yeah,
reality? And
yeah.
that's what I mean, right? So yes, we're taking reality with a bit of a pinch of salt. There's, so much that I can manipulate my reality, but I do have some degree of influence on
Yeah.
it, much so, very much.
Okay. Yeah. No, that
So
makes
yeah, yeah. So it's just I'm utilizing it for the purposes of sort of brain leverage, you know, to
that makes
understand that
sense.
when I change my perception, I am in a different world, and there are very real consequences. If you go into a bad mood, you go to the IRS, you're going to get shitty service. Guarantee you this. Promise.
That happens with everywhere. But I was talking about this that same thing the other day when I had a bunch of phone calls to make and try and figure everything out for what was going on with CJ, what was going on with my cable, what was going on with the insurance. It was just like boom, 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 one thing after the other yesterday, and it's like, all right, I know that I have to approach this with a different mindset, so that I can get what I need. But at the same time, I had to be firm and in some instances stern, very, very stern, not mean, but stern,
Yeah.
to get the person to zip their patronizing BS of, I do not like customer service representatives. I don't. I know it's their job, but they are overly, overly over the top pleasant.
Yeah. Yeah. And there, right there, customer service reps. This is a great opportunity to practice mood management. Yes. I mean, just come at it from their point of view. They've been trained to do this. They've been taught to do this. This is how the company says they must do it because people have misbeliefs about what customers want. Be sugary and syrupy and all this crap. Right? So I have great compassion for them because man, what a sucky job to do. But but at least they are doing it as a job rather than being a criminal.
Well, I can kind of give them that.
Change
Kind of.
food, change the associations, change the perspective. Bigger perspective view changes the way we feel when we look at things differently, or it can leverage it, use it. I do it on purpose to change my mood. Otherwise, I'm forced to be annoyed and irritated by them. I don't want to be. So I find a way
No,
that allows me to not be bothered by them.
No,
Compassion works great.
when I get bothered, it's because they're choosing not to listen and understand. They want to keep going on with their spiel,
They don't
not
want to
hear
do
the
things
customer.
Sher's way.
No, they just don't want to hear.
I know, but that's the thing, you know. It's like you're trying to scold the lion for wanting to eat you.
Oh, never
It's
mind.
how they are. It's how they are. It's what they do. You assume all people are human. You're
Because
assuming all
people are
people are.
human. I'm sorry. I haven't met anybody who's not. So
Oh,
no,
those two guys who were what they were doing to, are they human?
I
Not
don't
to
know.
me, they're not. Not to
Science
me.
says they are.
No, 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 no. So to be human, I don't mean it in the physical sense of what we define to be a human. And besides
Hmm.
which, you know, how do we know if aliens were to come and simply take the human form? Did I do a DNA test on them? And even if they could replicate the DNA, it doesn't make them human. It simply
Yeah.
makes them in a human form. So
Right.
to me, just that you've got a human form doesn't make you human, right?
Right.
So
Right.
this is to me, all right, maybe take the word human out of it. But to me, to be human means you have humanity. That's a different term. Yes.
Yes.
To
Yeah.
possess humanity. Those guys didn't possess humanity.
No.
Those customer service students are being condescending and pompous and God knows. Their humanity is also all screwed up. It's not quite as bad as those two criminals. But
Right.
still, this is to me what being human means, to have humanity, which means to have sobriety, impeccability, etc. So to me, I regard humanity as the accomplishment that makes you human, not the default.
Right.
And I think
Right.
this is very important to make this distinction because it allows us to interact with people who are problematic. Yes,
Yeah. I mean, that's the only way I got through the phone calls yesterday.
right.
It's just
Because otherwise,
like,
we
yeah.
expecting humanity when this is an irrational expectation. To
Right.
expect sensibility and sobriety from stupid people is idiotic. We don't do it with babies,
From insurance companies.
right? But why do we assume that people have grown up simply because they're older? Is this actually true? No. You know this is not true.
Right.
Everybody knows this is not true, right? I mean, you
Right.
get 3-year-olds that are older than freaking 80-year-olds, right? They have more sobriety and sensibility and maturity. So some people never grow up; they get stuck there. Yeah.
Right.
So to me, it's always about the appropriateness. In other words, yes,
Right.
always, 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 always. Right? And so that's why we get stuck in these expectations of people being human. Just because they look human doesn't make them human. Yeah. I refuse to fall into that trap. It's very dangerous. Yeah.
Okay. All
Very,
right.
very, very dangerous.
Oh,
And lethal. It's a lethal trap. It's a lethal trap.
yeah. All righty.
I mean,
I gotta
this
make.
is how those criminals get us. Because I mean, BMNs they do this all the time. They make you believe that they're your friend, that they're all nice, that they're good, that they're sensible, all the stuff, and you
Yeah,
fall
that's what
for it
insurance
because
companies do.
well, they're supposed to be, and then
Right.
they end up being horrid. No, 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 not gonna happen. Sorry, I refuse.
Right.
I refuse to get into that.
Wow.
Not gonna happen.
Um, okay. I'm gonna need to go. I've
Okay.
got
So,
two phone
so the
calls
key
I have
point
to
that I was
make.
trying to make is to use your habits and routines to associate it with, first of all, zooming out and being aware in the moment, right? To
Yes.
break that unawareness habit. With any routine and habit, you're in a bubble. So first of all, you use it to pop the bubble. Then, in now, well, later on, we may use this to do other things, but right now, use it to pay attention to how am I feeling and to change it simply for the reason of changing it, not
Right.
whether the feeling is justified or not. I don't care if the feeling is justified or not. I care that you're able to change it, or me, I care that I'm able to change it because I
Right.
want to. I just don't simply like being at the command of anything out there, right? I don't want to be at the mercy of anything. I want to be free.
Right.
So I refuse to be at the mercy of my emotions. I refuse. No matter how legitimate they are. If they're coming automatically, nope, sorry, nope, not gonna happen. Doesn't matter how legitimate and justified you are. Yeah?
Hmm.
At least for me, because I want to be truly free. Yes.
Okay.
If I know you are going to get in a certain emotion, if I do something and it's righteous, I can manipulate you. I can put you into that emotion by doing that thing if I got no scruples and ethics. And I can manipulate you because I know how you're going to behave. Yes.
Hmm.
I can force your
Yeah.
behavior. See, I don't want that. I don't want to have that vulnerability of somebody being able to force my behavior. No, I want that. Or never mind, somebody, life, the universe, the world, whatever. Me, I don't even want to be at my own mercy to feel things automatic. I want choice. I want choice. I want choice. Yes, that's the point here. I want choice.
Yeah.
Now, it's not easy. It's not easy initially. It's very difficult to feel what is basically we're feeling it's right to feel this way, even though it's unpleasant. We've basically
Mhm.
got to learn to do what initially would feel wrong to do, but it's not, of course, wrong. Right? So you got
Okay.
to go against your feelings, against that innate feeling of wrongness. It's not wrong. You're doing it through choice. I want the skill. I want the skill. Yeah,
Okay.
very cool, Sean. Very cool.
All righty. I
Wonderful.
will. What's tomorrow? Wednesday. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. I look
Um.
forward to it. Brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm
Hopefully, I'll
keen
be
to
able
hear
to.
what's going on with CJ and how everything works.
Yeah. Well, this is really slow going, and the people who swore up and down they were going to call me back have not.
Oh,
So,
that's
um,
incredible. That's incredible.
what's incredible is the lack of communication.
Yeah,
I do not. I don't see the reason for that.
yeah,
You know, here I am worried about my own defense mechanisms, and they're all the ones who are avoiding. Like, just
correct.
pick up the phone and tell me what's going on.
Yeah,
Simple. Nobody
I
stays
agree.
that.
It's quite incredible, quite astonishing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And I
Oh,
will talk to you
pleasure,
tomorrow.
sure.
I'll let you
Pleasure,
know.
pleasure, pleasure. Yeah, talk to you tomorrow. Bye
Okay.
bye. So
Bye.
rest well. Rest well, please. Rest very well.
I'm trying.
Oh,
Good
bye bye.
night.
Bye bye. Bye bye.